Astra Mk2 is India's next-generation, beyond visual range, air-to-air missile. Under clear skies at high altitude, the missile leaves the rail with a clean, low smoke plume and snaps to a lofted climb, conserving energy while the launch aircraft sends mid-course updates over a secure data link to refine the target's position, speed, and aspect, setting up a long-range intercept beyond 200 kilometers when geometry and altitude cooperate for maximum reach. The first burn of its dual-pulse solid rocket motor builds speed and sustains cruise. Then the motor rests while guidance rides inertial navigation and periodic updates, preserving propellant for a decisive terminal reignition that restores high endgame energy and expands the no-escape zone against a defending fighter that tries to drag the engagement down into denser air. The heart of the terminal phase is an indigenous Ku-band active radar seeker that lights up late, resists deception, burns through jamming with tailored waveforms, and can home on jam when adversaries push power, converting their electronic countermeasures into a beacon rather than a shield. This seeker and guidance stack is built to survive beaming and notching tactics, to dismiss towed decoys, and to maintain track through high G turns, with software control laws that favor lead pursuit when the target dumps energy and rolls into a pull-down to spoil the shot. Range is not just a headline, it is a family of envelopes that depend on altitude, speed, and aspect, but current reporting confirms a push to over 200 kilometers, moving this weapon into the long-reach class alongside the premier international designs that define today's beyond visual range battlespace. Earlier planning figures in open literature cited roughly 160 kilometers, while the latest procurement intent signals both technical maturation and a desire to buy depth rather than boutique stocks, with a projected Indian Air Force order on the order of 700 rounds to arm frontline fleets. Realistic no-escape zones are far shorter than raw range, yet the dual-pulse endgame and refined seeker logic materially widen that lethal window, especially when the shot is taken from altitude against a target that is hot aspect and unable to maintain a clean notch under sustained terminal pressure. The implication is simple in practice. More geometry works for the shooter, fewer tricks work for the defender, and the second pulse buys back time, energy, and turning authority exactly when most single-pulse designs are running out of breath. Aerodynamically, the missile stays slim and efficient, with mid-body wings and aft control for low drag during the loft and strong authority in the endgame, while improvements in plume and signature control cut the defender's early warning and shorten the reaction timeline from launch detect to countermaneuver. A fragmentation warhead with precise proximity fusing is timed for the angles that matter in a real fight, with burst logic coordinated to the seeker's terminal picture so that fragment density bites in a near miss during hard turns, where closure is high and a direct body hit is statistically rare, but a lethal spray at the right instant kills control surfaces, sensors, and engines just the same. The integrated avionics plan marries inertial mid-course with data link control from the shooter or a cooperating asset, enabling retargeting if the picture changes or the initial prey drags the shot too deep, and it keeps the missile on efficient trajectories that trade climb, cruise, and dive to preserve speed without wasting propellant. All of this comes wrapped in an indigenous seeker and software stack, which matters not just for performance but for sovereignty, allowing rapid waveform and ECCM updates across production lots without foreign licensing friction when adversary jamming patterns evolve under combat pressure. On flight lines, the integration roadmap prioritizes Su-30 MKI first and Tejas Mk1 and Mk1A in parallel, with captive carries, carriage and release clearances, and firing trials slated to ramp through the mid-decade so that real squadrons can carry real numbers rather than demonstration rounds. Astra Mk1 is already operational and has been fired from Tejas at beyond 100 kilometers, which de-risks pylons, wiring, store separation, and software-in-the-loop pathways needed to bring the longer-ranged successor into the same envelope, with larger kinematic margins and wider seeker reach. The procurement scale, hundreds, not dozens, signals a doctrinal shift from relying on a small Rafale Meteor subset to equipping the large Tejas and Su-30 fleets with indigenous reach, which spreads lethality across many more cockpits and sorties, and crucially, across the full tempo of a crisis. In practical terms, it means ripple fire is an option, not a luxury, with one round to force the break and a time-staggered second to kill as the defender hits an energy valley mid-defense, a tactic enabled by dual pulse timing and secure update. That keep the intercept basket tight as geometry evolves. Context matters, and recent combat lessons underscore why this missile's profile is tailored to the region's realities, because the air campaign dynamics around Operation Sindoor rewarded fast standoff decisions, corridor denial, and electronic warfare resilience. During those days in May, each side probed with fighters under the umbrella of bigger sensors and jammers, with long-range missiles setting the boundaries of courage, and the side that could credibly threaten tankers, early warning aircraft, and the outer rings of combat, air patrols gained time and space for its own strikers to work. In that kind of fight, a 200-plus kilometer class missile on common airframes does three things at once. It pushes enemy CAPs back from the line of control and international boundary. It forces enablers like tankers and airborne warning radars to live deeper and cover less. And it gives escorting fighters the confidence to protect standoff shooters without racing into hostile, no-escape zones. Multiply this across Tejas and Su-30 formations, and the air picture tilts early, because the defender must respect salvos from multiple axes, with simultaneous lofted and level shots, creating timing dilemmas that no single beaming turn can solve cleanly. For Tejas specifically, this missile is the equalizer that changes the terms of engagement, because a light fighter with a modern active, electronically scanned array radar, a competent electronic warfare suite, and a secure network picture becomes a standoff sniper rather than a knife fighter that has to push into hostile, no-escape zones to be relevant. With mid-course updates from its own radar or from a cooperating Su-30 MKI, a Tejas formation can bracket a target, time-stagger its shots, and hold high-value assets at risk without burning precious fuel in hot pursuits that expose the formation to enemy long-range weapons. The combination of a quiet launch, a smart loft, and a late seeker activation means the defender's first clear queue may arrive too late for a clean escape, especially if the first missile forces a defensive break that masks the second's approach during the energy trough that follows. This is the transformation from presence to control. Tejas becomes a fleet multiplier, adding many more long-reach shooters to India's daily combat air patrols and quick reaction alerts, spreading risk to the adversary and discouraging massed probes before they form. Technology gains over the earlier variant are not incremental bullet points, but compounding effects that show up in survivability and kill probability, beginning with the propulsion split that lets the weapon fight twice, once to get there and once to win there. The Seeker's coup-band agility and electronic countermeasures suite are tuned for the jammers likely to be fielded in the theater, and the program's domestic control of algorithms permits rapid iteration so that tactics learned on Monday can be coded by Friday if the fight demands it, a loop that imported missiles rarely match at speed. Software-defined performance also means spiral upgrades without hardware swaps, so waveforms, sidelobe management, and deceptive target rejection can evolve over time as squadrons accumulate combat and exercise telemetry against real opposing emitters. The platform synergy extends to data link choreography as well, because cooperative fighters can pass refined tracks, promote targets, or reassign shots mid-flight, reducing waste and accelerating closure decisions without blowing radar cover early. Comparisons are inevitable, and in South Asia, the yardsticks are Meteor and PL-15, both marketed or assessed in the 200-plus kilometer class, But the contest that matters is not brochure range. It is no escape zone under jamming and maneuver, sustained with a magazine that can last through a week of surge operations. On that field, an indigenous missile with dual-pulse endgame, a seeker under national control, and inventory in the hundreds changes calculus because every Su-30 and every Tejas on station becomes a credible threat at distance, not just the premium Rafale flights with Meteor. Adversary planners must either live outside of multiple overlapping, no-escape zones or accept mounting attrition risk while burning more fuel and more tanker cycles to keep CAPs on the line, exactly the kind of slow squeeze that a sustained air campaign exploits. When the mission shifts to offensive counter-air, those same factors create windows where strike packages cross with less interference, because the defenders who would press in to contest them are now spending time and energy defending themselves against long-arm shots from multiple directions. Programmatically, momentum is real, with defense leadership taking up the extended range proposal, the Air Force aligning a substantial order, and industry moving limited series production to feed trials and ear. Live fielding as flight firings on Su-30 and Tejas proceed through the next phases. The cadence is familiar to any modern missile introduction. Captive carries to prove loads and data links, separation at various speeds and altitudes, guided shots against targets that stress kinematics and seeker logic, then operational test events that integrate tactics with real squadrons and real electronic warfare. Because the earlier variant is already in service and has flown from Tejas, much of the airframe and software plumbing is proven, shrinking the path to frontline readiness once the longer-range motor and new seeker clear their milestones. The destination is not a demonstration shot, but routine carriage on daily patrols across sectors, with stockpiles deep enough to sustain ripples and salvos without the logistics anxieties that come with imported, restricted inventories. In a future fight that echoes the pace of Sindhua, success will favor those who shape the air picture before merge, who deny corridors without exposing their own flights, and who carry enough weapons to keep pressing even after day one. And this missile is designed for that reality in this theater. It buys standoff for strikers, it punishes CAPs that try to edge forward, and it threatens the airborne scaffolding, tankers, and early warning that holds an air campaign together, and it does so from platforms that are numerous, familiar, and already on the ramps in strength. When fielded in numbers, it changes behavior, because opponents stop volunteering for risk near the boundary and begin to plan from deeper, thinner coverage, handing time and freedom of action to the side that can hold the line with long-reach shots and resilient seekers. That is the quiet power of a 200-plus kilometer class, dual-pulse, active seeker missile in the hands of well-trained pilots and controllers. It stretches the field, it slows the adversary, and it turns a light fighter into a long-arm guardian that does not need to close the distance to win.